in die ateljee saam met ons Dominic, and I'm going to say it again, Giovannoni.
That's correct.
Hey.
Well done. You
Sure,
made it.
it's just shorter. It looks very long, the surname. You director and also beraader, what's it? Amper sê therapist.
Addictions counselor.
Yeah, counselor at Crossroads Recovery Centre.
That's correct.
Just a bit of background about yourself,
Yes.
where you come from, what do you do exactly?
I opened the centre. We've been running the centre here in Pretoria for about 5 years.
Sure.
I saw a need in Pretoria particularly to help people with alcoholism. Alcoholism, primarily drug addiction as well. I was in court yesterday helping somebody with an alcohol-related case. And the magistrates view alcohol as a drug. So we talk about it interchangeably. If you're talking about drug addiction or if you're talking about alcoholism, it's pretty much the same thing for us. So we've been involved in that in our community. My whole idea about opening the centre was particularly to open something for Pretoria, because I'm from Pretoria, I've lived in Pretoria my whole life, and I would like to do something in that regard for our community.
And I think that's the best place to start, because, I mean, if we start thinking about alcohol addiction, if you just think of the Northern Cape, the problems there, if you think just everywhere. But I mean, it's easy to feel you can't make a difference. So for you, I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous, we've grown up with that. The name, we've seen it in movies. Just a bit of background. How long has it been going? And is it still one of the most effective ways?
Absolutely. The program Alcoholics Anonymous has been running for about 80 years. Came into South Africa in the 50s, in the mid-50s. And if you look at treatment for alcoholism, the 12-step program is definitely the leading expertise in the field. We use it primarily in our treatment program. We have the majority of our program focused around the 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. The idea behind the program is to help people stay abstinent. That's the whole idea. It's one thing to stop. It's one thing to stop drinking, and especially, if you're looking at alcohol problems and if you're looking at young people today, it's easy to make a decision to stop drinking or to stop doing something if you're a student and you need to study for exams. The real trick comes in is, are you able to stop? The real trick is in identifying whether you have an alcohol problem or whether you don't have an alcohol problem. And one of the easiest ways to do that is if you make a decision to stop and you find yourself and you just, after a period of time, are drinking again because it seemed like a good idea, and you just can't stop. This is where Alcoholics Anonymous can come in, because it's all about continued abstinence from alcohol use.
Dominic, you just mentioned the 12-step program. What does this program entail?
Very tricky to explain for somebody who doesn't come to a meeting or somebody who doesn't come to meetings. The program starts, I've looked at this stuff. I've studied counseling. I do a lot of reading. I have certification, and there was a certain amount of work that I had to do around this stuff. And the program in Alcoholics Anonymous is not a new program. If you look at philosophy, for thousands of years, people have been talking about the stuff that they talk about in the program. It's one route to abstinence. What the primary focus is adopting some kind of spiritual life, giving up control, because relief is required from keeping high levels of control. And it's the one thing that we see with alcoholics. It's so interesting. It's actually quite fascinating in the treatment environment that people adopt certain characteristics dependent upon the substance that they're using. Heroin addicts have a tendency to be very needy and very clingy. And people who smoke a lot of marijuana tend to be half asleep. There's also quite a bit of neediness around there. Alcoholics.
Relax, man.
Alcoholics are into control. It's absolutely bizarre. It becomes very difficult to work with people if they think that they have all the answers. There's a huge level of arrogance around alcoholism, which is why
it's quite an interesting.
Which is why when people are told, listen, you have a problem with your drinking, the first thing that people say is, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Look at your own problem.
And lying?
Sure.
Because, I mean, when you're just lying about your drinking or drinking scallum at work, drinking the stuff you can't smell, is that also hand in hand with alcoholism?
Absolutely. Drinking stuff that you can't smell doesn't exist.
Yeah, everybody says vodka, but it's not. It's a lie. You can smell alcohol immediately. Yes.
It doesn't work. But yes, there's another classic indicator of having an alcohol problem. If there is a need to be devious or to lie or to hide the truth in any way, if you're not open about what it is that you're doing, why? Why are you doing that? Why are you trying to protect something from outside interference? Unless it's a level of control.
Dominic, we spoke about the 12-step program, and for me, interesting, being 80, it's like you said, 80 years old, and it's actually amazing that it didn't become 14 steps or 9 or 7. So they're doing something right with these 12 steps because it stayed 12.
Absolutely. There's a little bit of tradition associated with that in keeping the formula the way that it is. And there's a reason for that. That's because it works.
Yeah.
One of the primary uses in treatment is the 12 steps, especially the program is adopted from the United States. We've adopted the program as well into our center. And for those who follow through, the success rate is phenomenal. Like I say, it's not new ideas because you're talking about making right the wrongs that you've created as a result of your alcoholism. Because we were talking about dishonesty, we're talking about stealing. Everybody knows what it's like when you get a little bit pissed and you stand on the table and you take off all your clothes and you embarrass yourself in front of your friends and your family and all of those kind of things. Stealing cars, whatever it might be, committing fraud, fighting, arguing, beating people up. And there's a huge amount of devastation that comes with alcoholism. And part of the program is taking responsibility. And I was talking earlier about control. And being in control of a situation is not taking responsibility for a situation. Taking responsibility for a situation is being able to evaluate exactly what is going on. Not doing things your way because you say, and that's just the way that it is. And making right the wrongs of the past. And that's a primary part of what the program is. So it's about restoring relationships, bringing families back together. I think if I look at my theories and my ideas around why people start drinking, it's a sense of not being able to connect. It's a sense of separation. And when people put a substance in their body that makes that not matter anymore, the sense of separation and the sense of disconnectedness grows, because then I don't care about you and I don't care about what you need, and it becomes all about me and about how I feel and what I want. And there's a huge, even with people who don't drink, that's a huge problem. If you can't connect with people and if you can't work with people and you have an inability to be rational and it's just aggression and hostility and pushiness, this is where the program helps us.
Yeah. You can answer that. Maybe it's someone that's part of the steps. And
switched my phone off.
Go like meet me now, because that's actually part of the thing, having a sponsor. So just check who it is. If it's your mother, that's fine. And then there's two things our country wanted to change. Is the age limit to 21, and also the marketing of alcohol. Because for me, as I'm sitting here, I don't really know where I can get some heroin. It's the difficult thing to get. You got to go through a process and it immediately feels criminal. But I can walk out here and I just go buy alcohol. Is that a massive problem as well? What do you think about changing the laws?
If I can give you some perspective, I'm not a fan of the whole legalize movement. But one of their philosophies is that on our planet there are a certain percentage of people who are genetically predisposed to alcoholism or to addiction. And that number is not going to go up and it's not going to go down.
Yes.
So whether they change the legal limit or whether they don't change the legal limit, that percentage of people is going to be the percentage that become alcoholics. The South African Bureau of Statistics are saying that between 10 and 13% of South Africans will become alcoholics, addicted.
Just repeat that. I mean,
10 to
13 to
13%,
13%.
which is in line with international
Yes.
standards
It's
and
actually
international
amazing.
statistics. So if we work just as a rule of thumb, 10%, doesn't matter what age group you can drink or you can't drink, it's not going to make any difference because it's going to be 10% of the population is going to need help.
I've heard this story once that said the moment you've got to make plans to drink less, you've got a problem.
Absolutely.
So that's a fact.
Yes. If people who don't have a drinking problem don't worry about their drinking.
Yes.
And if a person can get past that arrogance when somebody says, listen, the idea is if people are communicating to you that you have a problem, that you listen and you do something about it, then you also don't have a drinking problem because you're open to feedback and you're able to make informed decision. You haven't lost total control and total power over your life.
Very important. What can people look out for if you suspect someone's got a problem with alcohol? Let's go. No, stay with alcohol.
The first thing is denial that there is any kind of problem. People have a misconception that if someone is drinking in the morning, that's
a sign of
the
alcoholism.
only
Yes.
sign of alcoholism being there. If a person's budget is being blown on alcohol, you do say focusing on alcohol, and that's 100% right, but the behavior is very similar to a drug addict. All the focus, all the attention is around drinking, is around having parties. And the brilliant thing about Alcoholics Anonymous is it's for people who want help. They want to change. Sometimes people do need a little bit of a push in the footsteps, in the right direction. But it is a case of empowering people to take initiative to help themselves. The biggest factor, the easiest thing to look at in identifying an alcohol problem is a change in personality. If when that person puts that substance in their body, their personality changes, there's a problem. Because then it's a solution to another problem. It's not just having a few little drinkies and sitting with your friends. That personality change is the real thing to be wary of.
Any advice for what they call the silly season? We're going into December, New Year's.
You know what? I've been thinking, coming into this interview, a lot about drunk driving on our roads, which our country has the highest rate in the world of drunk drivers. And that's not something to be proud of. Being a crime capital or being a drug capital of the world is not something to be proud of. It's quite embarrassing. And to have the amount of road deaths that we do in this country is disgraceful. People should not drive when they touch alcohol. They should not. The biggest piece of advice that I have there is wherever possible, don't drink and drive. And if you suspect you have a problem, at the moment our treatment center, and we find it year upon year upon year over the Christmas season, we fill up.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got holiday and leave and they want to get sober for Christmas and the pressures of the year. If you have a problem, get help. Now's the time to do it.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Contact Alcoholics Anonymous directly.
Dominic, thank you. I really want you back next year. I think we've got a lot more to discuss, especially with other addictions as well. But thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Jy kan geskakel bly vir jou 7 uur nuus weer en verkeer.